Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following everything happening with the latest gaming hardware. I'm Jim Hatfield, and this week I'm joined in studio by IGN's publisher, John Davison.
Hello.
Welcome back, John. And of course, Ryan McCaffrey, host of Podcast Unlocked, joins us as well.
Always a pleasure, Damon.
And this week we're considering the rather ominous question, will the Nintendo Switch 2 be the last console to ship with the ability to play physical media right out of the box? Now, people who consider themselves to be hardcore gamers, the type of person that might be watching this very show, tend to be very vocal about how much they like physical games and how important they are. But here are some potentially sobering facts. Spending on physical games in the US peaked in 2008. It has gone down every year since then. Meanwhile, spending on digital games has gone up. In 2023, video game-related items were the most popular items on U.S. kids' Christmas wish lists. However, of those items, only 22% were physical games. They were less popular than subscriptions, consoles, accessories, and virtual currencies. Now, in the UK last year, only 10% of game sales were physical. And, of course, big box retailers like Best Buy and Walmart are phasing out physical media. And, nope, that was my last point. So, all that really seems to point to us getting to a place where, while the Nintendo Switch 2 will be playing cartridges, what of the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox? It seems like they're getting more and more comfortable with the idea, at least, of not having a unit with a disc built in. Of course, like the PS5 Pro, they can always sell it separately, right?
Yep.
But what do you think? What's the possibility that going forward, the next PlayStation and Xbox do not have a SKU with the built-in?
There's no way anything's going to have a disc drive.
Oh my gosh, you feel very confident.
Yeah. Absolutely not.
I have to reluctantly agree. I think John's right on the money. I mean, when was the last time you saw a first-party Xbox game physically on the shelf?
Also, special editions don't have discs in them, right? They have
Stuff.
They have codes for the digital download.
Yeah.
I mean, but that would be pretty significant if this is the end. This generation's the last one.
And I think it's awful for like when you think about the implications for the preservation of games going forward. We are now entirely at the whim of these things living on servers that are managed by people who have different motivations, right? When you think about, like, you know, games get turned off all the time. Like, there are things from this point forward that we may not be able to play in future because they may get turned off. There's a whole bunch of different licensing or whatever, copyright reasons why it may go away tomorrow. And we're already seeing it. And like one of the great things about physical media is it's preserved. It's there. It's like you could put it in a library of games and you can preserve it. I'm going through a bunch of stuff like right now. Like I have a box full of old PS2 games back from when I used to run the official PlayStation magazine. I found a sealed copy of BMX XXX, believe it or not.
Okay.
Which, you know,
I hope you didn't open it.
Not the greatest game of all time, but you know, it's something that was, it's a piece of game. It's an awful piece of gaming history, but it's a piece of gaming history. If that was on a service and no one was playing it, it would get taken off that service and you'd never be able to play it. And I think that's what we're oh my God, we pulled it up.
I love that you specifically called out that it's sealed. Like, I didn't play it. I haven't played it.
I never played it. According to DK Oldies, I might get $9 for it. Wow. I mean, I think that, you know, I mean, it's great. Look, there's a whole generation of people that have grown up not knowing that games ever came on physical media, and they didn't know music came on physical media, right? Yeah. I mean, it's the same problem we're seeing on music and movies and everything. But I think for games, it's a shame that we are fast approaching a time where there are games that you love that have the potential to go away forever.
For sure.
Somewhat optimistically, and I still don't think that it's going to change the overall tide, the way the tide's going here, but vinyl, to your music point, John, vinyl has been on a resurgence, and vinyl sales have been going up every year for the last several years. So I don't quite know what that looks like in the game space. Maybe it's just Nintendo continuing to put cartridges out?
It's what limited run games are doing, potentially, right?
I wonder if that would present an opportunity for a smaller, like Limited Run is sort of providing a niche service. I wonder if there would be an opportunity for like a niche console that operates on physical media.
Yeah. I mean, I think, vinyl, vinyl is really expensive too, right? I mean, you buy, if you find an album that you love and they do a special limited run, I mean, you pay $50 for a really heavy pressing of it, but it's because you love it. I mean, there is the potential for that. There's limited run, and, I could see a time where there might be other companies pop up that do that. I hope so. Because, it would be a shame for stuff to go. But that said, on the flip side, the convenience of being, there is a time coming where I think we're one generation away from everything streaming too, right? Where it's like, you're not even downloading it.
Yeah. You wouldn't think that they would get rid of the ability to play discs altogether, though, right? Like there would be an accessory, an add-on, I think, at least for one more generation.
Foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think. I mean, how many? Yeah, maybe one generation.
Yeah, one generation.
Yeah.
Well, the whole reason we brought this up is because we had an article on IGN this week from Sean Layden, former Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios CEO. He doesn't think Sony could get away with a discless PlayStation 6 yet. So he was telling Kiwi Talks, quote, "I don't think Sony can get away with it now. I think Xbox has had more success in pursuing that strategy, but Xbox is really most successful in their business in a clutch of countries, the US, Canada, UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, coincidentally enough, all English-speaking countries. Sony, which is the number one platform in probably 170 countries around the world, has an obligation or a responsibility to say, if we go discless, how much of my market is not able to make that jump? Can users in rural Italy get a decent connection to enjoy games? Which part of your market will be damaged by going to a discless market? I'm sure they're doing their research on it, and there will be a tipping point where there's some percentage where you can say, okay, that's fine. We can turn our back on that part of the market. But Sony's market is globally so huge, I think it would be hard for them to go fully discless, even with the next generation." Any thoughts on that?
Well, how does that explain the PS5 Pro?
Yeah, I think the explanation would be that it's not their main system. They're not going to sell as many Pros as they will with the base PS5, right? So I think that would be the reasoning there.
Whatever follows 5G as a mobile network is going to be more than fast enough for what he's talking. I think he's probably wrong on the digital stuff. I think we're seeing these sort of exponential improvements on, like, there are days where my phone's connection is faster than my home's internet connection.
Yeah.
There's certainly days where my phone's connection is faster than the office network.
Yep.
So, we're already kind of there.
Yeah. Ryan, what do you think of Sean Layton's comments?
Well, I think people would wisely probably believe Sean Layden's opinion on this over mine, but I'm with John. Yeah, I just don't. We've been moving away from physical, and you cited the sales statistics at the top of the show, Damon. There's not really a business reason that I can see based on the trending data for the last decade plus for them to continue going down that road. It costs them money to do. They're not selling a lot of them, and you can, and we have seen that market just get handed over to the limited runs of the world for the unfortunately shrinking number of players that want to participate in physical media. I mean, I completely echo John's sentiment about game preservation. It is crucial, and to that end, I think Microsoft gets, at least for now, a little bit of credit, because I think they've talked the talk and walked the walk on they've talked about that game preservation is important, and their backwards compatibility efforts, and so there's no reason to believe they won't continue to do that. But to John's point, as games are more and more online, and these companies are mega billion or even $1 trillion corporate entities that look to cut costs here and there, and aren't known for emotional attachment to things, that there's no stopping them from just turning a game off after some amount of time, whether that's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, doesn't matter. Like in terms of game preservation, ever turning it off is a problem.
I think where he is right is if it remains downloads in the next generation. Like, I think if it's streaming, I think that's different. That's a completely different equation. But if you think about how much bigger file sizes get every generation, just because just the amount of data required for the detail in the graphics. And we're going through a bit of a change with that right now with DLSS and like how much is AI contributing to like how good things look, and like people get really upset about that. But if we really are looking at, I mean, how big was Call of Duty this year? It was like how many gigabytes was it? 300 and something or 150? I don't know. But they're getting massive, right? Yeah. And I think that is a limit. If we're looking at you still have to download the thing on PS6, I think then he's right. In these territories, then the bandwidth is going to be an issue. But I think we're also going to start seeing streaming becoming much more of a thing in that generation, and we may even see a combination of like you're downloading a bit of it and then streaming the rest of it. And like, I mean, Game Pass is already doing that, right? It's like it does a little bit and streams the rest and then downloads another bit, and and I think for that your phone is perfectly capable of doing that.
I do think the numbers that I was sharing at the beginning, 10% of games in the UK, only 10% were physical. I think that's being skewed because this is all game sales, and what's the biggest platform for games? It's PC, where games are 100% digital. So that's skewing the console numbers somewhat. According to Statista, in Q2 2024, only 70% of PlayStation game sales were digital. So they're still seeing, at least on PlayStation last year, some 30% of their games are still physical. So I don't know. They may not be quite ready I guess they would only be losing a potential 30% of game sales, because certainly a lot of people who would lose the option of buying physical, they're just going to buy digital anyway.
Right. So, I mean, we started this conversation because of Switch 2. Do you think Nintendo is going to ship all of their games on cartridges?
I think first-party Nintendo games on Switch.
You think they're all going to be cartridges?
Well, I think on the Switch 1, I think they sell very well in physical. I think that's like kind of an exception to the rule. First-party Nintendo games sell really well in physical media.
I actually have continued to, not 100% of the time, but I'll still go physical from time to time with some Switch games, mostly because it's sort of a weird approach, I think, for me, is because I don't trust their online infrastructure. Like, I would rather just physically own it, because Nintendo is so behind the times compared to their competition with regard to online stuff. I mean, there's also, like, I'm fortunate enough to have a copy of Super Mario 3D All-Stars. And it's like, well, that, and they limited that, which was still a horrible decision that I don't agree with, but I'm glad I have a physical copy of that, because it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, if this is all true, if the next generation of PlayStation and Xbox does not have a SKU with a disc drive in it, that you don't have to buy separately, then we are at a pretty significant crossroads in the gaming industry.
I mean, the Series S has been there since the start of this generation, and the latest versions of Series X and PS5, that's where we are.
Yep. Well, viewers, I want to know: are you still buying physical games? Are you physical forever, or do you buy all your games physical? Or you're all digital, or somewhere in between, based on what the price is, or maybe you like to pick up special editions? Make sure to vote in our poll on IGN.com the day this episode goes live. We'll share the results with you next week, just like we can share the results of last week's poll with you right now. We were talking about the fancy new NVIDIA cards, and we asked, do you plan to buy any of the new NVIDIA cards? 62% said you're waiting for the 60 series. But of the ones that are buying, 17% said yes, they're going for the 5090. That was followed by 13% for the 5070 and only 8% for the 5080. I wonder if that's common. When three options are offered, the middle option is the least popular.
Wait, how many for the 5090?
17% said they do plan to buy a 5090.
Isn't that the one that's $2,000?
Yeah, that's
$2,000. We've got a hardcore audience, hardcore gamers.
Audience.
Love it. I just ordered a new PC with a 5080 in it, so I'm in that weird middle group.
You're in the bottom tier. It's interesting.
Desktop or laptop?
Desktop.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my new work/gaming PC.
Nice.
Interesting. Very cool. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. John, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Ryan, always a pleasure. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes in our LA office to make this episode possible. My name is Damon. We'll be back next week with more on the latest gaming hardware news. We'll see you then.